Welcome to another edition of How to Build Lifetime Cash Flow Through Real Estate Investing. I'm Rod Khleif, and I'm thrilled you're here. And I know you're going to get tremendous value from the gentleman we're interviewing today. His name is Van Sturgeon, and he's born and raised in Chicago. He's got assets in 4 states, has about 1,000 doors. He's done tons of renovations as a general contractor. And I think that's where we're going to focus today, is that incredible volume of renovation experience that he's had. So welcome to the show, my friend.
Well, thank you very much for having me, Rod. I've been looking forward to this opportunity to chat with you and hopefully get out the good word with regards to helping folks out with figuring out this whole renovation rehab process right now.
Sure. Take a minute and just tell us a little bit about your story. Let's start there because that was a very cursory bio. I know you've written books on renovation and quite a few other things. You've been on some larger media outlets, but talk about how you got started in the business and just kind of bring us to today. And you don't have to rush it in whatever time frame.
No, not a problem. Well, I'm a product of the '60s. I was born and raised in Chicago, and my immigrant parents and my little brother, we lived in a 1-bedroom apartment down on the north side of Chicago. And like all immigrant parents, they were trying to save up all their dollars to be able to go run out and buy their dream home. And so as they were scurrying away all their dollars, they're able to find out that the building they were living in actually had gone up for sale. And so instead of running out and buying their dream home, they put their nickels and shekels and all that together and borrowed some from Peter, Paul, and Mary and put their down payment toward and purchased that apartment building. And so that happened in the late 70s. And it was an apartment building that was fully occupied. It was a nice investment, but then those creepy little the late 70s started to roll in, and it was a miserable time during that period. You had Jimmy Carter, and you had the interest rates at 18 some odd %. Iran hostage situation. Yeah, I don't know if I'm sure you remember.
All the above. I remember buying houses on credit cards for 18% interest just because the numbers made sense, but it was a tough time.
Yep. And so that period of time was not really good opportunity. It was not conducive to owning multifamily. And what ended up happening was that fully occupied building all of a sudden started to get higher and higher vacancies as good people started to move out into the suburbs. And then you had the criminal elements started walking in with gangs and drugs and prostitutes and that kind of thing. So over the course of that whole period of time, we were struggling as a family to hold on because literally in that neighborhood of mine, you had landlords who were literally torching their buildings or setting them on fire to collect insurance money because it was such a miserable time. And so as a family, we had to do everything that we was able to hold on to this investment. And so we ended up doing everything possible, in terms of the repairs and renovations to that building, from painting, cleaning toilets, windows, you name it, we've done it. And so we were able to hold on to it and ended up being a great investment. And I went off to university, graduated, and had aspirations to be a lawyer, or at least my parents did. But I changed my mind and I crushed their dreams. And I told them I wanted to get into general contracting, be into that renovations, really enjoyed it. I'm passionate about it. I love it. And so that's what I did. So in the late 80s, early 90s there in Chicago, I was running around on the hustle, growing my general contracting business. And that's how I got started. And as I was moving toward, growing that business, I kept running into the same folks, these real estate investors who were either flipping properties or buying and holding properties and creating rental portfolios. And that's when I got exposed to it even more so. And then I started to do that on the side. So I was running a successful general contracting business along with, being a real estate investor. And so those are the things that's how I got started and progressed.
So in your general contracting business, were you doing new builds or repair work for the most part?
When I got started, it was repair work on residential, then I transitioned into doing commercial. And then I've built a number of homes from subdivision all the way to custom homes as well. So I have that. There's nothing that in terms of the construction and renovation that I haven't done that I've done everything that walks and crawls pretty much. I've worn many hats.
Right. Yeah. So you I know you've got single and multifamily now. You've got 1,000 units in 4 states, 4 locations. In fact, out in New Brunswick in Canada as well. So, at what point did you transition to multifamily, and why? I mean, did you start bringing multifamily into the fold? Was there like an epiphany or a pivot moment, or it just decided to add that to your portfolio?
Well, I had the experience from my background with my family, and I've always had a casting of admiration for multifamily, and so it was just a matter of progression as we kept going as I moved forward. How I fell into things, and it wasn't something that I planned out. Ultimately, I started with a portfolio. Went up to 80, 90 doors, and then created a property management company. And the relationships that I had with other real estate investors sort of supported that business as well. And then with that, as you continue to grow, you see the positive benefits of having a multifamily where you have a number of doors in one location versus having them spread out all over the place. Which there's advantages and disadvantages, of course, of that.
Right. Yeah, to me, it's more advantages, frankly. I don't know if you've ever heard my story, but it was the single. I had a big seminar in 2008. Lost a lot of money, and it was a single family that pulled me down because it was too dispersed. But let's go to your superpower, which is renovations and contracting, and let's talk a little bit about. And let's focus on multifamily for purposes of this conversation, because that's my listener base. Let's say somebody buys a 10 unit, for example, and it needs to be renovated. That needs, all the standard stuff. Maybe paint, carpet, or flooring, paint, flooring, fixtures. Might need new HVAC. Might need new roof. But all the interior stuff needs to be done. Maybe it even needs cabinets and countertops. Maybe you can give us some advice as to how someone might approach that level of a project and not completely screw it up.
Sure. Well, unfortunately right now, because this overheated real estate market, and we've got such a demand out there for services on the general contractor and the contractor tradesperson side, that it's becoming more and more difficult to find good quality contractors that are willing to actually price out your work.
Right.
I know people that I've heard of people who are calling 20, 30 contractors, and they get a handful of them who actually reply. And from those, they get these quotes that are they're all over the place that range in price from $5,000 to $15,000, and you're struggling as to try to be able to figure out which one it is that you should go with. And so, in order to be able to find those types of contractors you can rely on, and I know you've mentioned it often, and I totally concur and agree that you have this power team that you've created where you have trusted advisors and relationships with real estate agents, with mortgage brokers, and those are individuals that should be able to direct you with individuals that are in that sphere, that are good quality contractors and tradespeople that can sort of help you in that process. But even with those references that you get, you still need to have an understanding of what the life of a general contractor is, and what it is that they go through, to be able to understand how you position yourself to be able to get the most amount of traction or actually people actually get bids and quotes from these individuals. Because oftentimes, if you just make random phone calls to people, they're not going to reply because they're busy.
Right.
So that's one of the things that I advocate, is for folks to really get into, whether it's single family or multifamily, is to create a detailed scope of work that's associated with your actual particular renovation rehab project. And oftentimes, especially on the single family side, I find that a lot of folks don't want to go through that detail of actually putting it together. And that's really incredibly important if you really want to create an attraction to these contractors and tradespeople to quote your work. Because if the information that you include in that scope of work is detailed, and you've included plans, drawings, measurements, they don't actually even need to go out to the actual project to do that, to spend time on quoting it, if they have the information readily available to them. So as a result, you're going to be able to attract more good quality contractors who are going to want to price out that work. And that way, is a process of creating that scope of work. You learn more about the actual project itself. So before, obviously, and I know that even before you even get to the point of planning a renovation, you've already done your market research. You've already gone in the marketplace to figure out, hey, these are the types of things that I need to do to be able to add value or improve that property. The types of cabinets, the color of the cabinets, whether you need to add a dishwasher, the color of the appliances, whether you can get it by with white or stainless steel. These are all the things that you need to have figured out. But then you got to put them down on a detailed scope of work to be able to get it out in a marketplace so that the quotes that you receive, you can compare apples to apples with. And that's one of the struggles I find with a lot of folks out there, especially the newer ones, that they don't appreciate the amount of effort that you need to do in the beginning to plan this out, to be able to put your best foot forward to having a successful renovation rehab.
No, that's great advice. That's great advice, doing the scope of work in advance. And then, when you've gotten past that and you've gone out there and you've gotten some bids from contractors, what suggestions do you have or tips do you have for selecting the right contractor, screening the contractor? And we'll start there. And then I'd also like to ask how you protect yourself to hold them accountable as well. So Sure. Could you start with the first part on the screening?
Well, with regards to screening, you're hoping that you've gotten positive references from individuals, from that power team. So that goes a long way. So if you have somebody that's already used a contractor or a tradesperson, then that should push them forward further in the process of evaluation. But there's other sources of you being able to find good quality contractors and tradespeople. And, you're a big supporter of, and I totally agree with, joining your local real estate investment association, where there's like-minded individuals over there, investors that are in that particular area that you are, have your property, you're concentrating your efforts in, that those individuals should be able to help you identify those right people that you should be doing work with. How many times that I found and that a huge mistake is made when you pick the wrong contractor tradesperson, and the amount of money that's a cost associated with trying to fix that or resolve that issue or problem that they've generated. And sometimes it's better off to pay a little bit more of a premium associated with that individual you bring into your project than going after the lowest common denominator in price. So once you've been able to identify the individuals that you want to do work with, obviously you got to go out there and spend your time and do your due diligence and visit references, visit individuals that have, those projects that they worked on in the past. Hopefully you can get a hold of and talk to those principals that these contractors and tradespeople have done work with, and get an understanding of the level of quality and the relationship that they have with these people. Because how do you quantify quality? Until you actually see it, then you'll be able to understand and appreciate it. So my level of quality may be different than yours. So you need to really go out there and do your due diligence to see what these individuals are producing, then that they are going to produce, hopefully, for your project moving forward.
Got it. Okay, so you actually go look at their work. Wow. Okay, that's a lot. That's a lot. And I can see a lot of people not doing that. But I absolutely agree with the benefit of it. So once you've made your selection, is there anything in the contract signing process, any tips you have to protect yourself in that piece of it?
Well, there's a number of things that over the years I've included in way of clauses to make sure that you protect yourself and your interests. And one of the things is, these deposits that you give to contractors and tradespeople to start, unless you have something specific written in the terms of the contract and or actual on the invoice when things are purchased, you don't legally have ownership of that product that is purchased, even though you've given a deposit to a contractor or tradesperson, unless it's somehow you have that invoice appear with your name on it. So a lot of times we have this false comfort that, I've given this X amount of dollars to this contractor and tradesperson, and they're going to go out there and do the work. And for whatever reason, there's a falling out. At least I have the material, but that isn't necessarily the case legally. Also, there's situations where there's clauses you need to insert in terms of what the obligations are to that individual if there is any damage associated with not only your property but the adjoining property. And there's one situation. I remember a contractor was out there spraying the particular section of the property, and all of a sudden that spray mist ended up on a neighbor's car. Well, you got to have those types of clauses within that agreement that they own up to that problem or that issue, and you legally are able to deduct that amount off of what's owing to them to make payments, Because if you don't have that, then you can be subject to having a lien placed on your property. So these are the types of things, as you know, I'm sure you have over the years have accumulated to be able to put in.
How about like timing? How about like deadlines on completion? And what advice would you have about that component?
Well, as part of that detailed scope of work, your hope, once you've identified that contractor or tradesperson you want to do business with, you've created. You're going to sit down and you're going to create a scheduling chart where you know when it is that they're coming, when they're going, and then you're going to create certain milestones that they have to reach in order to be able to, if you get to that point, you get paid. If you get to that point, you get paid. And unfortunately, what I'm finding with a lot of folks that I'm talking to that out there seems to be a lot of folks are they're giving out these 50, 60, 70% deposits before even any work is done by these contractors or tradespeople. And I scratch my head and I wonder how can you let yourself do that?
Right.
Because it's the only place where I pay up front before I actually get anything is when you go over to McDonald's. When you're McDonald's, you make a payment and then get your hamburger. Other than that, none of these guys or girls are McDonald's. So hold on to your money. And it's like, having an employee, go try that with your employer. Go to them and say, can I get payments 2 week ahead of time or a month ahead of time? What is your employer going to say to that? Right. So I find so many investors go out there. It's just out of sheer desperation. And because these are desperate times in many cases, in many parts of the North America, where these trades and contractors are able to demand this kind of stuff, and I really strongly encourage you not to do that. To be able to, I understand the giving of money is associated with putting toward materials, but keeping a handle on it. So that's really how you keep control of your guys, right?
Yeah. One thing that I try to do is I actually try to get to a point where they don't get a draw or any money. They never get ahead of me. I'm always ahead of them, if that makes sense. So that, they're getting paid as work is completed, so they can, never cut loose and leave me and I lose. And, that may not always be possible, but that's always been our mindset. So holding them accountable. Do you ever have clauses in there with penalties if the work's not done by a certain period of time? Do you ever do that?
I don't. I'd rather not get into that. I like to create a relationship where we've established certain milestones that need to be hit, and then when the payment is triggered, like including those types of penalties, I haven't included in them.
Okay,
I know
fair
that
enough.
There's individuals who like to include clauses where there's bonuses if you're able to get to completion of a certain period of time. I don't like to. I'm not an advocate of that. I believe that this is a business relationship that should be based on you produce a certain amount of results and I pay you. And we have to structure a relationship where you got to produce results in order for me to pay you. And we're both on the same page with that.
Well, there are situations where, if the work's not completed by a certain amount of time, it can really cause a problem. And that's why I bring that up. And so, fair enough. Well, so let's talk for a minute about sequencing, because this is a problem that many operators encounter where a carpet will go in and it hasn't been painted yet, or so on and so forth. Can you speak to that a little bit and how someone might track that and stay on top of that piece?
Well, hopefully if you're going to go direction of hiring a general contractor, they're the ones that should be responsible and being able to control that. And if they're not, and you're acting as your own general contractor, where you're hiring trade specific, individually, the carpenter, the painter, the plumber, then you need to have a conversation with each of those parties. And again, part of that process of creating that detailed scope of work gives you a good understanding of what it is that you're looking to accomplish in that project. And so by virtue of you having relationships with these guys and conversations, I encourage people to create a big old Gantt chart where you start to slide in these different trades and contractors that are supposed to be doing certain types of work in that property, that building. And that way you have an understanding. Also communication. Like one of the things I'm a strong advocate of is that there should be more higher degrees of communication. We live in a world right now where you and I can talk right now through video. And that didn't exist back in the day when we got started. No. And so we should take advantage of that whole technology. And I can remotely, I can deal and handle with with anything.
Yep. I just FaceTimed a guy on a project right now, and he's able to show me what he's looking at so I can communicate with him. Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. Yeah. Sorry I interrupted. I just triggered a memory. Yeah.
No, it's an amazing piece of machinery. And so I strongly encourage folks to be able to think along those lines. And that way it frees up more time and gives you more control over the situation.
Backtracking a little bit, when you're looking at a contractor, do you look for any, qualifications or qualities when you're assessing contractors? We kind of bumped past that. I apologize.
No, it's okay. Well, listen, Rod, we are all as real estate investors, we're always looking for that unicorn contractor or tradesperson, that person that's going to give us the best price, that's going to show up on time, is going to give you great quality work. And I'm sure and I know, and you folks will know out there that are listening to this podcast that you're lucky if you get 2 out of the 3. And so you as a principal, as the investor, has got to really make decisions on, there's different types of contractors that you can slide in and use for particular projects. You can't use everybody for everything. It's not a one size fits all. So for example, if I'm going to do work on my home and you have a lovely home, your quality is going to be more important than price or time, perhaps. But if you're looking at a quick turnaround on a multifamily where you got to move products, you got to move in a tenant, or you're doing a flip, then perhaps time is going to be more important than quality and money. So that should be the determining factor in which guys you use. But also at the same time, looking at the individual contractor, you got to be careful of, we always fall victim of that, chasing the cheapest person, that finding that we're always trying to find that nugget, keep going through contractors, find that guy that's going to who's giving us the best quote. And we naturally, because we want to save money, we'll go after that one individual, but we got to resist the temptation, because oftentimes that individual is the one that will do much more harm. And I'm sure you've encountered it.
Oh, sure.
Sure. When they come in and you turn your back and they install, a couple 100 feet of porcelain tile that costs you $10 a square foot, all of a sudden it's up and down, it's a trip hazard. What's the solution to that? You just rip it all out and start all over again. And there's time and costs associated with that. So when you're looking at trades and contractors, you got to look at them in terms of what it is that they in terms of mobilization, who they are. Typically, if you're going to the larger firms that have 20, 30, 50 guys, electricians, plumbers, whatever, those are people that are going to be able to provide you with timeliness. But the issue, though, is that they're going to charge you more money. So you got to weigh those factors out and determine. There's a lot of
subjectivity to it based on your needs and speed and cost and everything else. And so it's a real balancing act.
Right.
Well, listen, guys, he has he coaches on renovation, and his website is vansturgeon.com, STURGEON.com. He's got some free books there and some really good stuff there. So don't hesitate to reach out to him. Really appreciate you being on the show, brother. You've added a lot of value, and I'd like to continue the relationship. Because this is such an important piece of our business, and it's a piece where newbies screw up all the time, and even seasoned people screw up because they bring in the wrong person. So I appreciate you adding value, my friend.
Thank you very much for having me, Rod. Appreciate it.
You bet.